Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. It's 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier. On Zoom, Commissioner Gary Edwards to my left, Commissioner Emily Klaus, and Commissioner Carolina Mejia also on Zoom. We have County Manager Leonard Hernandez, Assistant County Manager Josh Cummings, Clerk of the Board Amy Davis here up front. We have basically as long as we need to go through this morning's agenda. Public virtual attendance is available on Thurston County YouTube channel. Our first item is to review the draft agenda for this afternoon.
For this afternoon.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't seem right. Sorry.
The draft agenda is for the 29th, Tuesday.
Okay, so we have a typo on
Oh,
that.
yes, we do.
On the agenda.
We don't have a meeting.
I was like, wait a minute, I didn't think we're having a meeting this afternoon.
Sorry about that, Chair.
But you can't argue with an agenda, right?
You can in this case.
Yes. Okay, so we're actually reviewing the proposed agenda for next Tuesday's 2 p.m. board meeting. So pull that forward. We'll call it to order at 2 p.m. We'll have approval of agenda and opportunity for public to address the board, county manager's update.
This time I don't have any updates.
Okay, no updates expected. Then we have a lengthy consent agenda of 3A through 3N. 3A is a sheriff's office item, reimbursement contract with City of Tenino. Chief Mancias, are you here for that one?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is really to just renew the contract that we've had in place for this year, where we cover the Priority 1 and Priority 2 calls for service in the City of Tenino between midnight and 6 a.m. in the morning. This is to allow their officers to actually have time off on their downtime versus being on call all night long and responding to calls for service. The only change to this contract from the one that we did this year was just to extend it in length for 25, 26, and 27 so that we don't have to come back and renew this contract each year.
Okay. Questions for Chief Macias? Okay, is it, I'm assuming the financial piece of it's just, is kind of consistent with the past? Or is there some changes, any changes that we should be aware of to the financial arrangement?
No, the finance part of it was the same, the $25,000 for each year. The only difference in the contract was, again, the length of the contract for 3 years versus 1 year at a time.
Okay, any questions, Commissioner Mejia? Nope, okay, thank you, sir.
I want to comment. So this is something that we negotiated in previous years when I was mayor, and I think it's a great partnership. It leverages the beneficial aspects of each different organization, and I think so far, and it's a good deal. It's a good deal for the sheriff's department, especially. I think the last I heard there were 7 calls responded to in the last year, or 7 reports that were written in the last year. So to get $30,000 or $25,000 to do 7 responses is pretty good. But it also there may be once every 10 years a significant incident that this kind of helps support. However, I do, and I think this kind of gets lost in some of the other jurisdictions. As a city resident, I'm a city resident. I pay county taxes. I pay the same rate of county taxes as someone that lives in the unincorporated portion of Thurston County. So I look at my tax bill and then my parents' tax bill, which are a street over. We pay the same to the county, and that goes into the general fund, and that funds the sheriff's department the same. So Tenino residents, Rainier residents, city residents pay the sheriff's department and the county just the same as unincorporated residents. And I think that kind of gets lost. What this this contract represents is just it's kind of a token of a little extra help designating in this area, because some of the cities will take a step further and say, well, we don't just want the sheriff's department responsible for our communities. We also want a municipal police department, which is a fundamentally different service. It is very different. So I like this, but if there was any further contracts, I would want to have very serious discussions at the board level. I know they're having a meeting in Tenino about this tonight, and we have one deputy for 200 square miles in the 4th district. That's not a lot of police, and so any agency decreasing their service levels, decreasing what they have, whether it's the Chehalis tribe or Yelm Police Department or the city of Tenino, that's going to dramatically affect everybody. So, like, I just, I want to heed caution with any further, like discussions about contracts and changing public safety without having absolute, transparent, open, serious discussions about it.
And you're correct on that. Those would be definitely a huge impact in that area down there if there's any changes. But this contract here is solely for coverage from midnight to 6 in the morning. There are other conversations about the other items you were talking about, and those would be a separate contract that would have to be put in place, and then it would probably supersede this contract if those were agreed upon and done.
I would question why, like my question, and it's not even there yet, but my question would be, what are those, if like, and I'm just speaking as a city resident, if I already pay the sheriff's department, right, I already pay the same rate as someone that lives in unincorporated Thurston County, why would there be an additional contract for additional services? The contract that exists is between the voter, the citizen taxpayer, and the sheriff. Our local jurisdictions don't look out and look to create additional contracts with the assessor. They don't look to create additional contracts with the coroner. All the citizen taxpayers already pay for those services. So if there was a jurisdiction that was coming to the county and saying, "Hey, I want a contract for services with the coroner," I would be asking why. They're already paying for that. Are you going to get extra autopsies?
Chair. I guess as a follow-up to that, I would like to point out that under the Growth Management Act of the early 90s, when they decided the funding mechanism for municipalities and for counties, the big difference is the sales tax. And the cities get, when $1 of sales tax is raised out of the municipality, the cities get 85% of that. And the county gets 15% of that. And that's why places like all incorporated cities have their own police department if there's not a contract. And that's the division of inequity on revenue coming into the jurisdictions. And that's why the county needs to have a contract with the municipality. And the other bigger item, I think, is the utility tax that municipalities are allowed to collect. So there is a shortfall that the county has on an ongoing basis. And I'd like to make sure the county residents know there is a problem. The legislature was always going to fix it, but they never did. So anyway, glad to see the sheriff's got a contract.
I'm just glad to see Chief Mancias and Commissioner Fournier speaking cordially after the dust up at the casket races on Saturday.
He totally cheated, didn't he? I don't know if you guys saw that.
I wasn't trying to reopen in the mood.
That was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for being there. That was great. All right, thanks. Anything else is there any other sheriff items we should tackle while we've got Chief here?
I believe so.
All right, you're good to go, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3B, Superior Court JL and court visitor contract. I see Kristen. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here to ask for the board's approval to enter a contract with Cynthia Johnson to provide guardian ad litem and court visitor services for indigent parties. And these are parties in Title 26 and Title 11 cases. Ms. Johnson represents the best interest of the parties for whom she's appointed. We currently are operating under a contract that we anticipate will exceed $50,000 for the calendar year.
Commissioner McHugh.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes, I do have some questions. My first question is the 70,000, is that normal for GAL contracts?
No, Ms. Johnson handles the majority of the guardian ad litem and court visitor appointments. We've sent out RFPs for others. We do have some others that do take those appointments. She takes the majority of those for indigent parties. And so that's why we anticipate that she may exceed 50,000 for the calendar year.
Thank you. Kind of answered my next question with that, so.
And that's out of the budget for Superior Court? That's where that money's coming from?
It's out of Superior Court's general fund budget, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Kristen? Nope, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 3C, Central Services, request for qualifications for on-call architect and engineering professional consultant services. Bruce Rohrbach, good morning.
Good morning. Bruce Rohrbach, Interim Central Services Director. I'm here with Rick Thomas, who will be covering our request to authorize Central Services to issue a request for qualifications for on-call architect and engineering services.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Rick Thomas. I'm the manager of the Capital Projects Planning team. And as Bruce mentioned today, we are here to talk about an RFP for renewing on-call contracts for our architect and engineering services. We have about 16 on-call contracts presently that expire at the end of this year. And this is what we are asking for is to go out for a new RFQ in order to get between probably 6 and 8 on-call contracts instead of 16 to help us do our design work primarily for the projects that would be part of our capital improvement program. We have project managers on staff that are available to manage those contracts, but we do need the technical expertise, which these consultants will provide for us. This is very similar, actually almost exactly the same as the process that Public Works uses for their on-call consultant contracts. And we've worked closely with Public Works in regards to writing this RFP in order to make the processes within the county as consistent as we possibly can. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What do you have, like, if you said 16 right now?
Correct.
So if a project comes up, how do you go about selecting between those 16, or maybe it'll be 6 to 8 in the future?
We look at the actual scope of work to determine what is actually required. We'll then take a look at the qualifications of the on-call consultants and determine which one of those consultants best matches the qualifications for the scope of work that we're requiring to be done. If we do have more than one consultant that can do the work, we will quite often send kind of an informal proposal request to each one of the consultants, asking them to provide us with their interpretation of the scope of work and their process in order to be able to provide the services that we're asking for. And just as a reminder, these are architect and engineering contracts that require us to select the consultants based purely on qualifications. And when the scope of work is determined, then we will actually negotiate with the selected consultant the cost to actually do the work.
Mr. Klaus?
What is the dollar amount that you'll be awarding through this RFQ?
I'm anticipating that we're going to be, in a similar fashion to what Public Works did. We'll be asking there to be a ceiling amount of between $100,000 for the consultants that we would anticipate not using quite as much versus consultants that will be doing quite a bit of our work, up to potentially about $1 million. Again, these contracts would be for a 2-year base period plus 3 one-year options to give us the ability to have a 5-year contract.
Yeah, doing it this way, commissioners, front loading the qualifications saves time when they start to do a project, so that they don't have to stop, go out to RFP, find folks that are available, and then bring that back to the board.
Not a question, but a comment. This is the same process that Public Works as well as CPED has now started following as well for, in central services as well. And we've seen it work very efficiently in Public Works. And so.
It also helps the project team when they know they have a group of vendors that are already engaged and willing to do the work for the county. Sometimes it'll happen that getting in the queue with a company is just hard enough. Sometimes getting folks to bid on things. And so this is an industry best practice to save time, process time, to then have a list of folks are qualified, can do the work, that have proven themselves to do good work. And then you go and you work to get a competitive bid from that group.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Next item, also Central Services, resolution for purchase of Verizon Connect Reveal.
Yes, this is a request to use a GSA contract to provide telematics services on county vehicles. Central Services has 160 vehicles enrolled in a telematics program with Verizon Network Fleet. They're changing their platform to Verizon Reveal. It is available on NASPO contract. However, GSA contract provides an opportunity for a cost savings of about $2 per unit per month. Telematics are GPS units that are installed in county vehicles. They transmit data over the Verizon data network that provides information on vehicle activity, which is useful for providing utilization data. It helps our customers within the county manage their operations, which provides cost-saving opportunities as far as vehicle right-sizing the fleet.
Any questions for Bruce on that item? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Bruce. 3E is a commissioner's item, agreement for legal services.
Yeah, 3E board members really is in a partnership with our legal team. This is a request, and I don't know if Travis is here. It doesn't look like he's going to be joining us for this item. It's a request for legal services that were presented to the board, joined in with the legal services on the West case. There was a conversation that we had in a session, discussed that, and this would authorize me to sign the agreement to move it forward. When it was discussed, it looked like it was something that the PAO could take care of on their own. We discovered that there's a contract that needs to be signed. So I asked that this be added to the agenda, just so we have board direction on how to move it forward.
Commissioner Mejia?
I think it needs to be moved from consent if I recollect, if I remember correctly.
I'll second that.
I'm good with it, but I'm looking at you because I feel like you were the.
All right.
I'm gonna ask that it get changed, but my other question is, where would the funding come from if a contract was signed and money was expended? And I mean, we already know that Mr. West has filed an action against the county. I don't understand why the prosecuting attorney needs to go outside of his office to deal with this issue. Would the money be coming out of the stormwater fund if we needed to spend money? Why isn't the enterprise services covering this? I know they have said they can't indemnify us, but I think we ought to say, well, then we can't be in the contract if you can't indemnify us. That ought to be the response we give them back. I know that's a discussion I'll have to have with my seatmates, I guess, but I would like to have this discussion the day this comes up. So that's why I'm asking that.
Well, then I'm going
Put
to
on the agenda.
change this and have the prosecuting attorney, because this is not really being recommended by me. This is a technical component where I have to agree to the potential assignment of funding, but the decision to actually assign it out is the prosecuting attorney's decision. And that was relayed to all of you in one of the sessions that we had.
We don't really control that decision, right?
We don't control that decision, but this is a procedural component where then we have to agree to pay for it.
I don't like making out blank checks myself. I mean, I've just got a normal course of business. If we always do the right thing, it's so much easier to stay out of litigation than it is to fight litigation once we've done the wrong thing. So I'm not in a hurry to jump into something that I'm not very familiar with. I don't know what the problem is. And I would expect that the prosecutor would be here to explain that to us.
Yeah, this is the discussion that the prosecuting attorney's team brought to us in executive session. This is the lawsuit regarding the claims about the ILA creating a public meetings issue.
In the future.
I'm sorry?
In the future.
In the future, right, by the establishment of it. And so there's a group that is working with other jurisdictions, and they've asked the county to sign on. The report from Travis was that it actually had cost savings if we join with that litigation, and they represented all of us at that time.
All right.
And so the decision to assign it out again is a prosecuting attorney's prerogative to do, but when there's an agreement that has to be signed based on the conversation that took place in executive session, that really more is a direction for the board to provide to me rather than me unilaterally doing that.
Well, I guess my concern is the treasurer apparently is going to take on all the financial responsibilities in his shop that are coming with this agreement. Why can't the prosecuting attorney as well take this on in his shop so that we don't have this bleed of our general fund? Because most things that go through the prosecutor's office are paid for out of the general fund, unless it's a specific road issue or something that they're dealing with. And I guess
We can round that up with the prosecuting attorney's team, that question. I can't answer that question for you. If this item, if it's the board's will to move this from consent to discussion, that's absolutely okay. But, and even if it stayed on consent, I'm gonna change the presenter from me to either John Thunheim or Travis, our attorney.
This will be an item that would be good to, like we were talking about the second check-in.
Yeah.
This is the type of item where we may need to have a more extended discussion teed up next Tuesday.
Yep. Present for next Tuesday.
If not in the interim, but, so, because I agree, I understand Commissioner Edwards' question, and I heard, what I remember hearing was, like, if that decision's gonna need to be made, then this makes sense, because we're gonna be splitting the cost and paying only a fraction. But the question of why that decision needs to be made, I don't think was as clearly laid out as Commissioner Edwards and maybe some others of us would like to have heard.
Right, and I think that, Yeah, I think it would be great to have the prosecuting attorney's team here to further explain and answer the questions and so that the board can make a decision.
Okay, so more to come on that item. Let's go to 3F. CPED, set a public hearing for capital improvement program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Rye, Interim Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. This item is to set a public hearing for the annual adoption of the Capital Improvement Program. The hearing is held in conjunction with the budget hearing, which is scheduled for December 2nd. There was an e-brief sent out last Friday, October 18th, with the current status of the Capital Improvement Program, which has now gone through Planning Commission review and public hearing. Happy to answer any questions.
The only question that I have, and I don't know that you'll have the answer on this, is I've talked to folks on the Planning Commission that they heard the recommendation from our prosecuting attorney on the facts of making adjustments to this ordinance. And they feel that that was not information that was presented to them, so that there's some discrepancy there. So I guess we can iron that out when it comes up to a public hearing. I mean, we need to have a public hearing on it anyway, but I just kind of forewarn you folks, I guess. I don't know where that fits. Just that there was a discrepancy, and I don't know if anybody's been in touch with CPED over that issue or not as we put together this ordinance from maybe planning commission.
I'd be happy to check in with county management regarding that prosecuting attorney's.
I don't know where it's at. I just bring it up.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, you're saying that there was a discrepancy that the prosecuting attorney's office had?
Well, on the advice given by the prosecuting attorney during the development of this particular ordinance, that we could not call something a certain thing. We had to use a certain term, or there were some issues like that in there that they feel was misinformation from the prosecuting attorney. So
There is a letter that was attached to the e-brief last Friday, written by the Planning Commission and signed off on, and I think you'll see that there's a description in there specifically about the definition of capital facilities that the Planning Commission wanted to bring the board's attention to.
So the question has been asked and answered. If you take a look at that e-brief,
yeah, okay.
it's in there for you.
Thank you.
Just to be, are we talking about,
Well, we've got the LRA coming up.
Is that the one you're-
Planning Commission? That's kind of more what this is about.
The Capital Improvement Program, and I know that
But
there's.
it fits together somehow, does it?
Nope,
Oh, okay.
two very separate
Okay.
items.
Good enough.
Yeah,
But there
so-
is a specific letter from the Planning Commission that you can read, that they wanted us to convey to the board. And that the Planning Commission as a body has already recommended that we take a fresh look at the Capital Improvement Program and how it fits into the comprehensive plan.
I think we're speaking about two different things.
Yeah,
LRA.
okay, I think so.
Yeah.
On
okay.
the next item up, it fits more, but I thought they all went together.
No, it's okay.
No.
Regarding 3F, what Ashley is speaking about is just the role of the Planning Commission in that process. There's no legal issue there. We're talking more about 3G
Okay.
that we'll get to.
Thank
So
you.
just to put it back in
Right.
context.
I'm kind of jumping the gun. I thought
It's
they
okay.
were all.
No,
I'm very excited and about our items this morning. So on 3F, yeah, we are, just to clarify, Josh and the team are working through that process of having it go through the Planning Commission. Planning Commission have weighed in and their perspectives, which I really appreciate them doing. And we're working that through on what the options are so that we can bring that to the board. It's something that has been a historic conversation about the Planning Commission's role and them not wanting just to feel like they're rubber stamping things, and the need to have the county's specific capital projects all listed in there. So that's something that I'm getting up to speed on, and is what I think what you're addressing.
Yeah, that's what, I was tracking what you were saying. and about
Okay.
that.
Well, 3F.
One of the buildings that we were doing.
Right. So we're working that through, and then I think Commissioner Edwards' comment is more about 3G.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and for 3F, that is this year's process, and then next year is when we'll be able to have those conversations. But for this year, we need to adopt it.
Well, I
as we have
apologize
in the
for
past.
adding confusion to this situation.
So any more questions on 3F?
Okay, so 3F, we're setting that public hearing and we'll go from there. 3G is setting a public hearing on LRA Community Housing Code update.
Before I actually get started, working with the clerk and the board's schedules, November 19th, it looks like we will not be having a meeting on November 19th, and so this item will be
That
heard.
WASAC conference week, okay.
Yeah, and when we set the agenda for 25, we'll take that into consideration since there's a lot of interest from our commissioners and need for them to attend important sessions. And so this item would be heard on December 2nd, is that right?
Tuesday, December 3rd.
December 3rd, okay.
So that's gonna be a change there.
Yeah, we'll change the item after this meeting and change that note there. So with that, I'll turn back over to you, Chair, and Ashley.
Okay, and this one, I remember we went through all the different pieces that are going to the public hearing, so there's nothing changed from that discussion that we left.
Nope, so there was a briefing held with the board on October 2nd, and we got direction to move forward with scheduling a public hearing, which will now be at the beginning of December.
Okay, any questions on this one? Commissioner Edwards, you had
No,
something here?
that's, if you can decipher what I commented
Yeah.
on
No,
earlier.
I appreciate
There was just something going on with the planning commission, and I
They
don't
felt
remember.
maybe like when we were going through like what we were allowed to do, and they
Yes.
thought maybe they'd heard a
And the
different.
terminology we were able to use
Oh, okay.
or something in the ordinance. So it'll be fleshed out when we have the hearing, I'm sure, so.
Well, I mean, and again, I don't know exactly what the question was, but I know there's been times where the planning commission works, within certain parameters, and then comes to the board, and then we throw out some random idea or thought, and then, a piece of things go a different way. And the planning commission wouldn't have seen that coming, because
Right.
the board threw out a new idea after the fact, and then I understand sometimes they feel frustrated. It's like, well, if I'd weighed in on that, I might have thought X, Y, or Z, but it's just kind of the process, how it works through the planning commission, the public process to the commissioners, and then on into.
Yeah. And it's like you said, Commissioner, they're building that recommendation. I like Josh's word, the sideboards, that we come then to you and say, here's what council has advised, and then as a commission, you have flexibility to move beyond some of those sideboards, weighing the risks.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, to Commissioner Edwards' key perspective on the planning commission may have heard it or understood it differently, because then when we bring in the attorney to advise you and provide those boundaries, you may have discussions that say, well, what does it look like a little bit outside, a little bit inside, and then make those final discussions.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Any other questions there on 3G? Yeah,
Question,
Commissioner Black.
this sounds familiar. Is this the topic that the planning commission discussed when I was present at that meeting? Do you recall, Ashley? The CIP conversation?
That was the prior item.
Those three, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're still on it.
Now we're on
G now.
G. Yeah.
To G
Okay,
with
okay.
the LRA.
I was still on F, so.
Sorry, I probably mixed you up.
No, that's okay. I didn't.
Jumped the gun there.
Yeah, no, I missed that we moved to G, but okay. So I recall that conversation, but we're on G now. So I would just recommend, like, to my seatmates to watch that meeting if you can, or maybe talk with planning commissioners, because it was a really interesting conversation to hear them kind of go back and forth about their thoughts on the CIP. And I think they almost unanimously voted not to recommend it to us. So it was a pretty interesting conversation where.
They voted not to pass a recommendation. They didn't necessarily vote to recommend no.
They didn't do one way or the other.
They basically said that they did not feel comfortable with their role in the process, and so they voted to not forward on a recommendation.
And that's been the debate for a couple of years now when it comes to the CIP and the planning commission, and there's a long history.
Thank you for clarifying that, Ashley.
Yeah.
I think we're making progress with the understanding of what has to be done versus what can we do. So appreciate Josh and Ashley and Travis all working together. But you're right, that's what the planning commissioner is looking at this from my understanding, and just asking the kind of question of what their role is.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important question for us to continue to work through.
What would be, just kind of for my understanding on the process of that, because I think that's a really important conversation, and if it's, like Commissioner Mejia said, it's been going on for a long time, so there's a lot of history there. So what would the next step be for us as commissioners to kind of understand the role of the planning commission? Because I was kind of curious when they were going back and forth about their role, and it seems like there's not, a unanimous agreement on what their role should be, whether they're like, here to recommend or here to kind of like oversee the process, but how do we as commissioners come to understand what that role is?
I would go to the Municipal Research Service Center's website where they explain it really well, what planning commissions do, what their roles are in different communities in Washington State. And then also that there's a county commissioner handbook that also explains these things.
Yeah, and just, I would say I don't believe the Planning Commission has a confusion about generally what their role is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that in this situation, because this is really the CIP is an internal planning document for the county's facilities. And when we look at the larger way that we've interpreted, we're adding that in, and then the Planning Commission saying, well, if we're gonna approve or deny this, but then it goes to the board, it's a little bit of sequence, and it's a little bit of why are we doing it this way? So it's a process, and that's where the conversation has been with our legal team and CPID about years back, an understanding being applied, but maybe that's not the way in which it has to be done. That's just the way that we've done it, and so that's what we're looking through. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, I don't believe the Planning Commission has a general misunderstanding about their role.
No, I think a lot of it just has to do with the timeline. Like, if we have to do this every year, it becomes such a truncated process, preparing everything, doing engagement around it. And so I think we're starting off with, can we extend that timeline, give a little bit more breathing space, allow for a more robust discussion as it relates to our capital facilities planning. So I think there's the process piece, and then there's the substance piece. I think we include a lot more in our CIP than any of the other counties that we've looked at. A lot more detail, and then what do you do with all of that information?
You said something about this being a conversation early next year.
In terms of us being able to gather the research necessary, so we're checking in with other counties, we're working really closely with Public Works, because of course this is a document that they create, helps guide their work, as well as central services, and checking in with legal. So we're gonna wait for a little bit of breathing room to get through this CIP, but we hope by next January, February to have that pulled together in a package that can be shared.
Well, the two times that I know of this coming up is when we had a real estate opportunity that came out of the blue, if I'm on track with what you guys are talking about, and it was not something that could have gone through any kind of long, tortured public process that would stretch over a year. I mean, we had to make a decision, and one of them was the ballot processing center expansion. So that was a few years ago, but, so yeah, I mean, I don't, if the process is confusing the Planning Commission in terms of where they sit and feeling like they don't have a meaningful role, then maybe, then we can look at other options, and it may be
That's
not,
what we're doing.
may not be an expansion, it may be a contraction is all I'm saying.
Exactly.
Because I don't see how it could be an expansion of
No, we're not
what
looking at
we're doing.
expansion.
Okay.
What we're looking at is that it's a difference between the CIP as an organizational component that the board approves, and what the Planning Commission is looking at is more of the community-wide component. There's an interpretation we've taken and we've applied, and that's what we're looking at, how to clarify that, which will then provide clarity to the Planning Commission, and then we can move forward.
All right, good.
We're not trying to make it more bureaucratic.
Well, that's what I was starting to hear, where you were talking about like
No.
having,
No,
We're not gonna recommend from a 1-year to a 3-year process.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's more, you do both. You sort of contract what's in it, so therefore you don't have to go through that long process that you referenced for every decision that the board wants to make.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out, but
We'll come back with some recommendations
Yeah.
to your comment, then we'll have a work session on that and go through.
yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
trying to
That'd be
get
great.
out to
Thank you.
class question. Okay, we good on that item then? Thank you.
G and F.
F and G.
A good job, I might add.
HR is next, 3H. Res,
3H and I.
okay, 3H and 3I. Are they connected?
They are, yeah. I mean, they're directly, not positionally corrected, but they're connected. I'll kick this item off and then hand over to Maria. I want to thank our assessors team who came forward with some operational needs. And in that discussion, we're creative and responsive to our current situation, our current budget situation. And so what you see in 3H is the elimination of a senior appraiser position, so that in 3I they can activate the position of executive assistant, and thereby removing one position and adding another position, and it being pretty revenue neutral, I believe. And so I appreciate the approach of, if they have a need, they're also looking at how they balance the demand on resources by this approach. Maria, anything you'd like to add?
HR Director. So the assessor's office is requesting to eliminate a position. It's on their physical inspection team, and after evaluating the workloads on that team, they've determined it's not necessary to fill the position. The position has been vacant since May of 2024, and it had been vacant previous to that, so essentially since March of 2024. So after evaluating those workloads, they're proposing to eliminate that FTE. And in the second request, last year, the assessor's office lost its executive assistant position during budget cuts, as you may recall. It was cut primarily because it happened to be vacant at the time, and they didn't want to do any layoffs of actual individuals. However, it is a key position in the department, and its duties just could not be eliminated, so they had to be absorbed by 4 management staff. They already have full workloads, and so absorbing this has been very untenable for the office. And so the proposal here is to reinstate that, and as a part of this reorg, that would give capacity for the position to be funded without any request or budget allocation from general fund. And then there's also some savings from extra help funds that they can use to absorb this.
You hit on my question, which is, what's the budget impact to this? And so, if I'm understanding correctly, he is basically switching some positions around in order to reinstate the executive aide position. And
so instead of coming forward and asking for new FTE and funding, he looked at his organizational structure, operational workload needs, and he created a package that would not require any increased general fund money.
Our fiscal team, Commissioner Mejia, looked at this to ensure that it can be sustained based on how it was presented, and they agree with his assessment.
okay.
That's why we appreciate his identified need, but he's also looking at how not to have an increase.
Any questions further? No?
This is just the tools the assessor needs to do his job. That's up, and he's making that decision, right? Not getting any budget change or anything, so thank you.
Sounds right.
Thank you.
3J is Public Health Social Services. We have a few public health items. J is setting a public hearing for 2023 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or CAPER, if I remember correctly.
As Tom gets in the saddle here to present, this is another item that, if you notice in the action, it says the hearing on November 19th. So we will have to move this, but because there's a HUD deadline to have this done before the end of the month, we're going to notice November 25th to do the public hearing on that day, which is off a board meeting cycle. So I just wanted to note that. Are there any questions about that approach, or?
Can you clarify that for me? So we're moving it to the 25th, the public hearing, which
Yeah.
is not on a board meeting day. And that's because, why, can you remind me, why not November 19th?
November 19th is the conference. We won't
okay.
have a quorum. I think the majority of the commissioners will be attending.
Okay.
In the future, we'll make sure that our calendar takes into account that conference, since all of you annually attend. But the public health team doing their job, putting on a calendar, they did what they need to do, but now they didn't know that that meeting was not going to be there. So we can't push it to the regular December meeting because their deadline for HUD is end of November.
Okay.
25th is a Monday,
Yes. So we'll take
Monday of Thanksgiving week, okay.
And we'll take that Monday, notice it appropriately so that the board can do the hearing. It's not what we typically do. We can do it. The clerk has advised that we can do it. Just wanted to note for you and the public, it'll be a little bit off cycle.
So that's gonna be on the 25th.
And we'll make that change to the item for the next time the agenda is released. Back to you, Tom.
Hey, thank you. So Tom Webster, sitting in for Alex Pearce. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. As you've talked about, this is to set the public hearing, which is required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the federal funds we receive under the Home and Community Development Block Grant programs. So this is a public hearing. We have a 15-day public comment period, so we'll publish the draft report that will be available for the public. We'll update the dates in the AIS to update those dates. And then, as the county manager said, the report is due to HUD by November 90 days after the end of our program year. But happy to answer any other questions.
Questions?
Is this on the 120,000?
No. So the item K is around what we're funding for this coming year. The CAPER talks about what we funded in the past year.
This is a procedural thing. When we receive money, we're required to go through these HUD processes. Correct? Yeah.
So in June, we usually hold a public hearing for our annual action plan that talks about how we intend to spend the money we receive from HUD, the federal money. And then in November, we have this public hearing to talk about how we spent the previous year's money. So they kind of work in partnership.
Okay, you want to go on then to talk about item K?
Okay, yep. So this is a request to approve 2 contracts. So as part of our 2024 annual action plan, City of Tumwater received CDBG funds this year, so they made decisions. As part of our action plan, we proposed these 2 projects. So we're ready to move forward with contracts with South Puget Sound Habitat for Humanity and Rebuilding Together. Both of them are operating a critical home repair program in Tumwater. So the Habitat for Humanity contract will be for $45,000, and the Rebuilding Together contract would be for $75,000. And this is for critical home repairs for households making less than 80% of area median income.
Less than 8%?
80.
Oh, okay. All right, questions on that item?
So that's for 2 separate.
2 separate contracts, but for the same program.
Is that rate right? I don't know, just.
Which one are you looking at, Commissioner Edwards?
The action for K.
Action for K, move to approve 2 program year 2024 CDBG critical home repair housing contracts for $120,000. That reads okay.
Does that read okay to everybody? It just looks a little confusing to me, that's all. But obviously, I've mixed up a couple things this morning, so I wouldn't depend on my interpretation.
Okay, any questions there on K? Other additional questions? Then you've got L.
L, this is a request to move forward with a contract with United Way of Thurston County. So last month, you may recall, you approved us issuing a request for qualifications for a contractor to support us and implementing the 2025 point-in-time count. So we issued that. So we received 2 proposals. After a review of those proposals, United Way was scored as the highest, and so we're looking forward to move forward with a contract with United Way to support the 2025 point-in-time count.
And is that pass-through money from the state that helps us with that?
This is, we use our local document recording fee. So it used to be called 2163. It's now referred to as 5386. So these are document recording fees that we collect. They're specific for homeless services.
We can't use it for anything else.
We can't use it for anything other than homeless services related activities. And it's a set aside that the Regional Housing Council set aside $25,000 to support the implementation of the PIT.
We've never had United Way before, right?
No. So they have supported the PIT in the past. They've helped us with organizing volunteers and collecting donations. So they've had a role in the past, but not a formal role in this way. Past couple of years, we've done this work internally, but because of some staff turnover, we're looking for some extra capacity to help us with this year.
So is this typically the, like, 25,000 that the RHC sets aside? Is that typically used for, contracting with like agencies for volunteer work? Is that what this is? Versus like events in the past where you've purchased supplies for like, you know, big events for people to come in and do the PIT and get supplies. Is this like the same funding?
It is the same funding, so it will impact our ability to purchase as many supplies as we have in the past years.
Okay. And this is for volunteer? Is this like for volunteers to do the counts or?
It's for the United Way to do the planning, to organize the volunteers, train the volunteers, organize the logistics around the events that happen that day, to do the data entry afterwards of all the surveys that are collected, and to work on drafting the report that comes out of the surveys.
Okay.
And Tom, so you're saying because we have had some staff vacancies, that we used to do this ourselves and now we're asking United Way to do it?
That's correct. We have, I would say, over the past 8 years, we've done a mix. Sometimes we have, in previous years, we contracted with the City of Olympia to support this. We have used contractors in the past. In the past 3 years, we've done it internally ourselves. So we've used a mix of either contractors or outside support or ourselves internally.
I remember going to a training at the City of Olympia on it when they were running it. And then I remember meeting with Faith Adicott, I want to say. She was in charge of it.
Yep, we contracted with Faith 1 year.
Yeah, I remember meeting with her, and then we brought it internally for like, what, 2 years maybe?
Yeah, the past 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so it's not unusual, it's not like a.
No, done that in the past.
So if this is going to impact your ability to purchase as many supplies as you have typically, are there like other funding sources that allow you to do that? Because I know it's been really helpful for our houseless community members to come and, you know, get medical bags or receive foot care and things like that. Will you still be doing things like that this year?
Yeah, and so part of this will be a conversation with United Way. They've, one of the reasons I think they'll be a good partner is they have helped us collecting hygiene kits. And so I think we'll be able to use this, and we're hoping that we can partner with United Way to make sure we can get all the resources we need.
Okay, great, thank you.
Different groups contribute. I know, like, I spent a day in Rochester, and Roof had they had all kinds of stuff, you know, that they collected through their group. So, I mean, people really chip in, it seems like, and, you know, bring stuff.
That's a real community effort.
United Way is good at convening that, so hopefully that would be good. All right, thanks, Tom. Anything else on there?
Thank you, Tom.
More public health. Is it you, Tom?
Nope.
Okay.
Back in a couple minutes.
All right, next is M, which is grant agreements for Lake Lawrence, Offutt Lake, and Pattison Lake Management Districts. Stuart Whitford, good morning.
Good morning, Stuart Whitford, Environmental Health Program Manager. So today we're requesting you guys to support the approval and signature of 3 grants from the Department of Ecology. I have aged a year since we applied for these, unfortunately, and due to staffing issues, the Department of Ecology, which are still kind of present, and also other issues, here we are 1 year later. Anyways, these projects are already in progress. The effective dates of these grants is January 1st, 2024. So as soon as we get these approved, then we can back bill for time to offset the Lake Management District funds that are paying for it currently. So the Lawrence Lake project is to develop a cyanobacteria management plan. The total cost of that is $93,287. $50,000 is the grant. Offutt Lake is developing an integrated aquatic vegetation management plan. Cost of that is estimated $75,000, and they have a $30,000 grant. Pattison is an integrated aquatic vegetation management plan for $54,833 and $30,000 of grant. So we're asking for your support of this today.
Okay. Seems like a no-brainer on this one.
Let's go.
Yeah, it sounds like.
This is money back to the communities for their.
Yeah, it offsets the Lake Management District funds.
So thank you for, even though it took a year.
Yeah.
Thank you for digging in.
No problem.
And getting this assistance for those folks.
All right.
Thank you.
Good news. Thank you. Last consent item is Public Works License and Indemnity Agreement number 24111457 for a private septic line. Morning.
Good morning, County Commissioners, County Manager. My name is Matt Osman, Thurston County Engineer. This item is requesting the Board of County Commissioners approve an indemnity agreement. Stillwater Rental has applied for a utility permit to construct a private septic line under Summit Lakeshore Road. This isn't unusual for Summit Lake Shore Road, where the houses are usually on one side of the road near the lake, and the drain fields are actually on the other side of the road, most of the time uphill a little bit. Prior to issuance of the utility permit and construction commencing on this private utility crossing, a indemnity agreement for the right-of-way crossing is required to be entered into between Stillwater Rentals and Thurston County. So again, requesting permission for the Board of County Commissioners to approve an indemnity agreement for a private utility crossing on Summit Lakeshore Road.
All about water quality. This is beneficial.
How do they, you have to pump it, like, how do you use an uphill drain field?
It's
Tight line it.
It's a 2-inch line and it's pressurized and pumped uphill.
And then comes back.
And then hopefully it doesn't come back. Hopefully it goes to the
Hopefully it's
drain
far
field.
enough away.
Well, but I mean, at some point gravity takes over, right?
Well, it should go into the ground once it gets uphill, yeah.
It goes up and down. Hopefully.
Okay, questions? Nope, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Department item 4A, Public Health and Social Services, contract with Courtside Preservation Associates for affordable housing acquisition.
Tom's back.
It's back.
All right, Tom Webster with Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention, filling in. Alex Purse will present this item next week, but she's in a training this week. So this is to request your approval to contract with Courtside Preservation Associates for $1,357,699 for the acquisition of Courtside apartment complexes. So this was as part of the Regional Housing Council's request for proposals this past spring. This was a project selected by the Thurston Affordable Advisory Board and recommended to the RHC, and that was brought to you earlier this year. And so we're ready to move forward with contracts for this. It was initially proposed by Vital Housing. Vital Housing is the limited liability corporation that proposed this, that will be acquiring it. Courtside Preservation Associates is a special purpose entity that they've set up for the purpose of this acquisition. So this will allow for the acquisition of Courtside Apartments, which will preserve 209 units of affordable housing for the next 20 years. And then the agreement will restrict 75% of the units will be rented to households earning 60% or less of area median income, and 25% of the units will go to households earning 80% or less of the area median income. We are using the county's American Rescue Plan Act funds for this to ensure that those funds are spent before the end of the year. And this project is looking to close on December 5th. happy to answer any questions about this project.
Where is this place?
I do not, 515 Courtside in Southwest Olympia. But I couldn't tell you exactly where that is in Olympia.
Is this a recommendation by the local housing folks?
By the Regional Housing Council, yes.
And this is just our portion? To
Yes,
make
they've
this
received
happen?
other funding from the state for the total acquisition cost.
So where do these dollars come from?
These are coming from the county's ARPA funds.
Okay. The
County set
one-time-
aside
one-time- These are one-time expenditures that we recognized ahead of time.
Correct.
For this purpose, yeah.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works, contract award for Tamishan Water and Sewer Infrastructure Rehabilitation and Replacement Project. Joe Plahuta, morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Plahuta here, Senior Water Resource Engineer with Public Works. So this item is for the construction contract award for the Tamishan Water and Sewer Infrastructure Rehabilitation and Replacement Project. So this is the first of two contracts that we'll be bringing before this board that represent the ARPA-funded infrastructure work for our utilities. So this project is in our Tamishan service area. So we'd be replacing or rehabilitating select pieces of water and sewer infrastructure. As a little bit of background, we advertised this project for bids back on September 12th. We opened bids on October 3rd for the project, had a good bidder turnout. We received 7 bids. Engineer's estimate for the project was $2.47 million. We received a bid spread of $2.13 million to $3.25 million, with the lowest bidder being Roglins of Aberdeen, Washington at $2.13 million. So this item would be to award the construction contract to Roglins in the amount of $2.13 million. With that, I'm available to answer any questions.
I would not be able to name the project, but I know we've worked with this contractor before, and I think also at Lot, so I know that they have done good work in the past, and that it sounds like that you're saying that came in under engineer estimate.
It did, yes. So we had a good competition on this one too, with seven bidders.
Commissioner Edwards.
You mentioned two projects that you're coming for. Is the other one that Lost Lake project?
No, Commissioner. The next project we'll be bringing before the board is for the Boston Harbor utility improvements.
Okay.
Right.
And both this project and Boston Harbor are funded with American Rescue Plan Act funds, state and local fiscal recovery. So, similar to the last item, we're looking to get this work under contract by the end of the year in order to utilize that funding.
Thank you.
Anything else for Joe? No? All right, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Commissioners.
The business agenda will have commissioner reports and then a public hearing at 3:30 on Grand Mound West UGA expansion land use and rezone amendment. Anything we need to?
Is that at 3:30 today? We're having
3:30 next week.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all familiar with those projects, so we'll have public hearing at that time. All right. Very good. Move on to proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. I have no updates on proclamations today.
We did Flood Awareness Week, so we have Veterans Day coming, but no proclamation for the 29th.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
We can add one if you want.
I think we have our hands full there. Public hearing. Okay, then we will go to advisory boards and commissions. I know we do have some updates there.
We do. We have a few updates for advisory boards and commissions today. I will start with the resignation from the Fair Board first. It's down towards the bottom of the cover page here. We received a resignation from Michael Carney, who served sort of unofficially as an ex officio member. He continued to serving once the Fair Board reapportionments were made, and he has resigned, and so that position will not be filled. Any questions?
Nope, I don't think so. We don't have to fill it because it was kind of an
Right.
official position. All right. Fair enough.
So we'll go back up to the top and start with the Ag Advisory Committee. We've received 2 applications for reappointment from Robert McIntosh and Glenn Shorno. Both are eligible for reappointment and both have been recommended by the committee.
We want to go ahead and make those reappointments. Any questions or concerns or commissioners wanting more time? I think I'm good with that. I know both of those guys. Okay, so it looks like we're good on that. Put that on for the 29th.
Sure. The next item is for the Capital Regional Area Public Facilities District, or the CAR PFD. As you know, there's a vacancy for a district-wide appointment. We received 3 applications in total, and the City of Lacey has recommended Troy Kirby for appointment. The City of Tumwater also recommended Troy Kirby for appointment. I think there was some discussion on this one yesterday afternoon.
Commissioner Fournier, did you bring this up as like a 3 cities topic or something you guys mentioned?
Yeah, it was discussed at the 3 cities meeting. They were kind of talking about their process and kind of how each of them had come to where they were at.
Okay, and so they're in agreement. Okay.
Yes.
Seems like we have concurrence. Commissioner Klaus?
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
All right, we're good on that one, it sounds like.
Okay, we'll add that appointment to next week's agenda as well. Next, we'll cover the Law and Justice Council. There are 2 vacancies on the Law and Justice Council, and they conducted a recruitment this summer. 9 applications were received, and 5 of the applications were eligible. The council was provided all applications, though, for their September meeting, and they reviewed and discussed the eligible ones. They conducted online voting throughout a couple of weeks in September, and have provided me the results of the online voting. So the council recommends the reappointment of Kelly Olson and the appointment of Shelley Willis.
Commissioner Mejia?
And just as additional information for those who were ineligible, Leah did reach out to them, asking, these are the requirements, would you like to provide any additional information? And she didn't hear a response back from them, so that's why they were considered ineligible when it was brought to the Law and Justice Council when it came to voting time.
Yeah, I appreciate Leah's being proactive and really going the extra mile to see if they could be inclusive.
I'm excited to see that kind of interest and having good choices to pick from. And of course, I know Kelly and Shelley, so if those are the council's choices, I'm supportive. Does anybody want to?
Yeah, I think Shelley in particular is pretty wonderful. She's a nice lady. I still would like to understand or explore, kind of what the intentions are of that language, and make sure we all kind of understand, I guess, what that vetting looks like, or what people understand it to be.
We can do that. It was, according to Leah's, pretty broadly applied. There was not a high level of restriction put in, and there was really no discretion. It was just, if they put something in there, then it moved forward, and the ones that were ineligible just didn't put anything in there. And there
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that sounds great. If it's broad, then
yeah, it's
that makes sense. Okay.
It was my idea to create those slots, so I can tell you what my intent was, but then I think the way it got worded was slightly broader than kind of what I intended, but that's, chips fell where they may. I mean, it says what it says, and I don't have any beef with that. The idea at the time was really the Law and Justice Council is a council of like pretty high-powered stakeholders within a justice system. I wasn't really trying to create like community advisory committee I really wasn't trying to go super out there into bringing that. I was really just looking at community-based voices that also kind of had that background in criminal justice policy and issues and advocacy. So I was thinking of a slightly narrower field, but it sounds like it's been worded in the bylaws to be quite broad. So that's fair game for the council to decide and to, for it to evolve.
I think it creates an inclusive environment, and the way that Leah worked with the council and also her own process was very open and inclusive. And again, as Commissioner Mejia she went the extra mile to see if there was something that could be added in to get them eligible.
Okay, good. So we've got those then. That'll be on the 29th to 12th?
Correct.
Perfect. And is that it?
There's more.
Okay, there's more. Keep going.
Next, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee has one vacancy after Richard Moon's seat expired in July, and he does not wish to apply for reappointment. Public Works conducted a recruitment over the last couple of months and has broadly posted the vacancy and produced recruitment materials for events they've attended.
Which one are you on? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
And you're saying who is?
Richard Moon. Richard Moon.
Okay, he's not listed on the sheet.
No, his seat expired.
He's out, and Lisa's gonna be in, it sounds like.
Yeah, what she's saying is that she's saying the vacancy was created because this person's expired. So that he's on the sheet because now Lisa and Luke are the ones that submitted, and that's what we're reviewing.
And is this, I know Solid Waste Advisory Committee has certain seats that are recommended by municipalities. Is this a county seat?
This is a community appointment, yeah, so it's a
We
county.
have latitude. Nobody's gonna give us a recommendation. We have to
Well,
go through.
SWAC does
The
give a recommendation.
SWAC committee has recommended Lisa Harrison.
SWAC gives us a
Over
recommendation.
Mr. Kinkula.
Yes.
Okay.
So 2 applications were received throughout their recruitment, one from Lisa Harrison and one from Luke. It was determined that Luke is ineligible because he does not reside in unincorporated Thurston County.
Okay.
SWAC recommends the appointment of Ms. Harrison.
Oh, a master gardener. That's good. Okay. So are we discussing this one for appointment, or?
Yes, if you'd like to, or we can.
I see thumbs already. Commissioner Fournier? Supportive. Commissioner Klaus? Okay, looks like we're in agreement on that one.
Perfect. The last one is for the Veterans Advisory Board. We've received an application for reappointment from William Bill Powell. Bill is eligible for one more term. No other applications have been received.
2 thumbs on that one.
Yeah.
He's
been great.
If we can take a second just to, time's been public comment about the Veterans Advisory Board not having the needed documentation. And so, Amy, can you speak to that, the research you've done and what we do and what's required?
Yeah, so what is required for the Veterans Advisory Board is written evidence of membership of a nationally recognized veterans organization. And the staff members of the Veterans Advisory Board have updated their records to provide a copy of that written evidence for each member. For written evidence, we consider like membership cards, any other sort of, membership documentation from the nationally recognized veterans organization. So to clarify from the public comment we've received, it does not need to be a recommendation from the nationally recognized
written
veterans
evidence of
organization.
membership? Is that what we're
Yes,
looking for?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a letter of recommendation. That's what's.
Like Bill's a member of the VFW or something, I think.
Right, so they show their card, they keep a copy of it, and Amy and the public health team, social service team are working to get all that, on file. They've always done the vetting, just making sure that they have everything on file because it's come up a couple times.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was always slightly unclear.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I do
We're
have-
all, yeah. Go ahead, Commissioner Mejia.
Well, not about the veterans, I thought about the whole.
Yeah.
Okay, so feedback that we've gotten about past members is kind of an appreciation from the board for these volunteers, right? And I totally agree. So I'm wondering, can we either prepare a certificate or send out a card for Richard Moon and Michael Carney? I know Richard Moon has brought a lot of his expertise. I served on SWAC previously. I know Commissioner Edwards is serving on it now, and he kept up with all of the conversations, right? And sometimes it's very integrated. And so, thank you to Mr. Moon for his service, as well as Mr. Carney. I know that he was ex officio, but before that he was a full-fledged member of the Fair Board, and so it's just.
I think we'll do both a letter and a certificate. That way they can have something from the commissioners. That a lot of folks sometimes use that if they need it for other types of opportunities.
Yeah.
So it would be great.
SWAC, how has SWAC been, Commissioner? I used to hear about it every week, and I haven't heard anything about it.
Because there hasn't been a lot of substance to work on right now.
Okay.
We've got all of our certifications in place
All your
and such.
reports are submitted and stuff.
And the last two meetings, I've checked in, but there's a conflict with the board meetings for the last two meetings that I wasn't able to be in attendance of.
Well, I haven't heard any SWACs, reports in like
because
months and months.
Everything's pretty smooth.
That's good. I know. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, because I was quite thorny when I first joined the commission. It was. Yeah,
I suppose, yeah. No, it's doing good.
Okay, I see Travis is here, and
Travis is here. Do you want to talk about the item now?
we'll check in with him. Yeah.
So we were talking about item 3E, the agreement for legal services. Travis, not sure if you were, probably didn't hear the conversation there. We're going to change that item so that it comes from the prosecuting attorney's office rather than me be the presenter. Because the board asked that this move from consent to discussion. I heard that.
Yeah.
And then also Commissioner Edwards had some comments for you about the agreement itself. So I'll hand over to Commissioner Edwards.
On that agreement, I guess my question is, how come the prosecutor's office doesn't handle this itself instead of taking money from the taxpayers from some other area and deal with it? Why do we don't have adequate counsel, don't have the expertise? What's going on that we need to have a different, separate contract?
It's a good question, and I first I apologize. I wasn't able to make this morning's meeting. I had a conflict with a deadline that I had to attend to, but the long and short is that most of the legal services are budgeted and are through a given biennium, we try to staff attorney time appropriately to meet all of our anticipated needs. And as a general matter, our office does provide defense and legal services when it doesn't implicate the insurance pool, right? So risk pool, damage claims are made. That's a different arrangement, commissioners, and we're pretty well adept at having a relationship with the risk pool to be able to assign attorneys to defend a claim that could impact the insurance rate. This case is a little different in that there is no claim of damages, so the risk pool is not implicated, but it is in an area where it could be potentially significant you have a number of other local players that have retained the services of outside legal counsel. So that would be 3 other local players or partners at ILA. So there is a coordination and a efficiency piece to it. From just a functional matter, in order for me to be able to provide timely and reasonable advice to the board and to the other clients, adding an additional case would present some issues in terms of our timeframes for providing all the other services our office does. So it's a conversation we try to have, and we try to save as much money as possible by providing those services. But in this instance, we're seeking approval to get outside legal counsel to handle this case, in part because they have the same interest and the same arguments that the other partners have in defense, and there's a level of efficiency and practicality. But certainly, if the board is uncomfortable with this, I would have to, run this up the chain and, have a conversation with John, and maybe even bring him into the conversation. Now, there is a little bit of a time frame, our certain deadlines are due, and that's why I was trying to get in front of you as soon as possible to get an indication in terms of where we would go in order to defend this claim. And so I was under the impression that the board was comfortable with retaining outside counsel. But if there are different thoughts and different opinions, then we can certainly tee this up for further discussion.
And maybe a follow-up to that, Travis, is I think you had asked about the indemnification of the county, and the state said they couldn't do that, or something near that. Is that about right?
Well, it was me that asked.
Well, you asked Travis, or?
Well, I asked, and I copied Travis on the email, and the state said that the state department that we're working with didn't have the ability to do that.
But here, West has got an action. It says here, West versus Department of Enterprise Services. Why not let Enterprise Services, the state, deal with this? I mean, it's their thing. I don't want to get in the middle of their thing.
Because I believe
anyway, and I know they said they wouldn't indemnify us.
Well, and Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe because we've been served as well. So
We're named, yeah.
we're
Well,
named. So we can't just not do anything.
Well, if we don't do anything, why do we have to pay? Why do we have to spend taxpayer money on a state project? That's my objection.
Yeah, I don't know that I would describe it as we're paying.
Well, we're paying for a service that's going to benefit the state somehow. They're going to participate, but it's still, all of us are playing team ball, it sounds like, against Mr. West, who's brought some issues forward.
Well, so I think there's 2 actions, right? There's the consideration that the board is taking for the ILA. That has triggered us to be named in litigation. Because we're being named, we have to do something about that. We can't just not do anything about it. And we're not doing this because the state is doing it. We're doing it because we've been named separately. Because he's named a number of parties, the way Travis has explained it to the board is that this is actually a cost savings because they're going to be representing everybody at the same time. And because they're representing everyone at the same time and they have this specific expertise, I believe it'll actually save time and energy from the prosecuting attorney's office, who would have to then peel this off, do it separately, and then get into all the research that would be required for them to represent us.
Well, would we put a limit on it? I mean, $100 limit, $1,000 limit? What would that be? I don't want to just enter into a contract and it's open-ended and they just keep spending.
Yeah, fair perspective.
So the contract sets the billing rate for the outside counsel, and it's we can retain outside counsel as long as it fits the board's needs, right? And so if there's a scenario where we no longer want to work with this attorney, we can always change firms. We can always change paths. We're not locked in to allow them to the only thing we're obligated to do is pay the bill at the end of the month. We could always reevaluate. And I'll say this, that because there's a number of parties, the cost shouldn't be as significant as if we were the only named defendant, and that there are opportunities for the DES to take a lead role. And, by the way, just because we have outside counsel, it doesn't mean that I'm out of the picture and not monitoring the situation, reviewing the invoices and the overall strategy. And we still want to make sure that we're not just shipping this off. We're still very much involved reviewing what it is that outside counsel is doing and ensuring that it meets the needs of the board ultimately. And so the idea is that there's an efficiency here, as Leonard mentioned. They have an expertise in the area. They are representing all the other localities, but to the extent that we can manage the cost, there are certain things we can do through monitoring and making strategic decisions as the litigation unfolds. The one thing you can be certain about litigation is what you know today won't be true next week. And so there is there is need to be a little bit nimble when you're coming up with a strategy and meeting our obligation to defend the lawsuits against the county. But there are options to make in the future.
We're being threatened that we're going to have to lay off some folks if we don't get our budget right. And so is this going to come out of the stormwater fee or of the stormwater fund? Who's going to pay the bill? I'd rather this came out of the prosecuting attorney's budget myself and let him deal with it how he sees fit. I don't know where this money is going to come from. We haven't even decided how we're going to fund this agreement if we do enter into an agreement with the state. So can you give me an answer at all to how that would be? I mean, why is this such a push? We don't even know where money's coming from yet, how we're going to do this. And the thing that it might get out of control and balloon into something else, yes, that does bother me too. Are we going to be able to pay for this as part of the project in total?
So this would be paid for just as if the PO is going out for outside representation on other items. This would be paid for by the commissioner's office.
But if it was being paid for, if the case involved around road activity, for say, the road department did something wrong, didn't have a ditch right or whatever it was, I'm hoping that we would maybe balance that out there because we don't have a budget to deal with this. And so I don't want this getting out of control right from day one when we haven't even started. That's my objection. So can you give me a better handle on where that would come from? Because we don't have it in our budget.
I don't think Travis can answer where it's going to come from because he's not part of the budget team. I think the question that the question I heard within your question is, do you have an estimated amount for this so that we can anticipate and understand what the impact will be, Travis?
It's a good question because I understand there's, uncertainty is not helpful. and I can certainly say that there is uncertainty, but I can also say that there is optimism that a case like this can be managed. So the state already filed a motion to dismiss, and the localities are likely to join that motion. I can't say for certain, but that's that's where things are. That was filed by the state, I believe, on Friday last week. So if this gets resolved on dismissal, you're probably looking at I don't know, maybe $10,000 or so of legal fees. But
split 5 ways.
So it's split 4 ways. Our rate would be $70 per hour for our contribution toward the legal defense. So I don't know. I would anticipate the work would be, let's just say it's $40. Give them a week of time in preparation for hearing, whatever else. I'm spitballing here, but we're probably looking at somewhere along, see if my math is good enough for this. Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking about a couple $1,000s, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, by no means. And in fact, I think if it were resolved without any significant trial or hearing, then you're looking at maybe again $5,000 and $10,000. I mean, it's hard for me to tell, given what the parties will do and if the complaint gets amended. There are certain things that can happen in litigation you just don't have control over. But there's no reason to believe that, that this couldn't be resolved within the expenditure of a couple $1,000s.
But we don't.
This is not a great. I understand it. You don't want to commit
Well, some of these legal firms, I don't know what, they could be $400, $500 an hour for this kind of stuff, couldn't they? And
and that's why $70 an hour is a good deal.
For preparation or, it's a big hit. We haven't even got started on this. It's not a big hit in the scheme of what our overall budget is, obviously, but we haven't even got started and we're talking about wasting taxpayer money, basically, is what my concern is.
Well, say this, if the commissioners want to back out of the ILA, that's your prerogative as well. There's a cost to government. That's,
unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm going, but I'm going to be a single vote, I'm afraid, on that.
Well, yeah.
I just,
So we'll move.
okay, let's put this on,
Discussion.
let's put it on,
It's a department item, it's already,
and
it's all done.
then we can all do our thing, right?
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you, Travis.
Okay,
Was there
thank
any-
you, Travis.
Is there anything else we wanted to run by Travis while he's here? Came up in today's meeting? Legal issues?
I didn't hear any legal issues. I appreciate Travis's time.
We could have him talk about a dangerous tree.
Dangerous tree, you might want to stick around. We always have a robust discussion about paying for dangerous tree on tax title properties.
Hey, Travis,
Got Jason all excited. It's like-
why can't I just bring a chainsaw to work with me? I run the chainsaw almost every day and go knock these darn trees down. Is the county gonna incur a bunch of liability? And that's
Oh boy, Commissioner, dangerous trees are a dangerous topic. There's no question about it. Yeah.
We're ready.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay.
Jason, are we ready for that item?
Yeah, we're ready for,
What I passed out, and Commissioner Forney, I apologize you didn't get a copy, but we'll put one on your desk. We have the bids that Jason went ahead and received for this work, so thank you for doing that based on the perspectives from the commissioners to get bids, and I'll hand over to you to describe the situation quickly.
Bruce Rober, Interim Director of Central Services, in line with guidance from the commission. Jason's in this process to get 3 bids when removing tax title trees, and Jason can.
Did we get 3 on this one?
Yes, we did. So, good morning, Commissioners. Jason Ash, Facilities Manager. Attached, you'll see the assessment form, and I believe there's a picture attached to some of the bids here. There is it is obviously dead and in danger of falling. The neighboring houses have brought it up. I received 3 bids. As you can see, they're all very close, but the low one came in at $1,600. So, you're asking approval since it would be paid out of the general fund.
Who?
Did you put in a bid, Commissioner?
I might bid on it, yeah.
Yes.
Who took the last one out we had? Did that same party bid again?
Yes, I believe it is this Northwest Tree Care that is taken out, and is actually scheduled for removal tomorrow.
Jason's gonna provide the range of bids.
Yes. So as you can see, the range came in at $1,600 to $2,100. 21 being the high, and we had one that was just over 16 at $1,642.
And we're good to go tomorrow as long as I don't throw over.
No, that's for the tree you asked about previously.
Oh.
Previously approved. Yes.
Oh, you don't have this one scheduled?
Nope.
Okay.
When it's scheduled before the board gives approval. That'd be a bit presumptuous.
Yeah.
That does not look complicated to me, looking at that tree. I know the photograph doesn't show everything.
Any discussion on this item? Do we have a agreement from the board to move forward with the lowest bid?
I guess so.
2, 3.
So, Commissioner Thorne already put his thumb up.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work, guys.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate the work.
Okay, and, that's the end of the agenda. Are there other commissioner items? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Did everybody get a chance to read Commissioner Harding's letter from the Port of Olympia about the tree issues, the legacy forest?
Yep. I'm preparing a response for her.
And I have a meeting set with her as well.
Okay, I guess I'm not gonna beat a dead horse to death, and I just wondered if everybody had a chance to take a look at it. Thank you. I had a good discussion with her as well.
I think the dead horses have been beaten thoroughly today.
A lot of horse corpses on the floor of the boardroom today.
Okay, anyway, there's some serious ramifications to more than just the junior taxing district, I'll say, on this issue. So, anyway, thank you, I'll just let you look at that for now.
Yeah, well, the false narrative is that it's a choice between the revenue from the trees that DNR has decided they're gonna, all the mature forests that they decide they're gonna cut, or nothing. And that's not the choice. It's a false narrative, but that's the narrative that they're spinning, that is creating this unnecessary concern, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Okay, so we've come to the end of the business agenda and we're adjourned. We're back in session tomorrow?
Next week.
Next week, okay. See everybody next week. Thank you.